exactly the time of the show whereby we're about to get into our conversation to do with travel and leisure in the Eastern Cape and here in Kukombo City in particular. I did say we're going to be joined by, I think, safe to say, no better person in this part of the country to speak to about this particular thing. And that is, of course, Mr. Velile and Dumbini. He is the managing director at Imonti Tours. Thank you. I'm very excited for this conversation because what people maybe don't know is that it's not the first time we're speaking on air together in my radio career, but it's the first time we're doing it in person.
Exactly.
So something about that feels different.
And it's like we've been meeting like for a long time.
The first thing I want to actually speak about before we get into this conversation is, could you let us know how you got into the tourism industry in particular, and how did that story begin?
Thanks a lot. When I finished my matric, then at Buddha Technikon in when it was 1995, they were introducing travel and tourism. So I get excited, and not knowing anything about it, then I was admitted there to study travel and tourism. Then because of the problems I had, so I couldn't finish. Then on my second year, then I did a course in tourist guiding because my grandmother passed away in 1997. Then that's when, because I grew up with my grandmother, so and like with my grandparents. So then I did a course in tourist guiding. That was 1998. Then 1999, I was accredited. I became the first black tourist guide in the area.
Really? We need to celebrate that. That's amazing.
And then by then we had one company. I think there were two tour operators here. There was DN in King Williamstown. There were three. There were two in King Williamstown. And we had Amatola Tours, which was big. So even the course was offered by Amatola Tours. Then I started guiding for them because we had cruise liners, which we still have today. So when we have cruise ship, I will guide for them and on a freelance basis, and then with other companies also. Then, we had no tourists in the area, but I could see, my interest was on the township tourism.
Okay.
Because I've met one of the legends in the tourism industry. We had Brajimi Tintili, the late Brajimi. May his soul rest in peace. He was running a township tour in Soweto. His company was called Face to Face, Jimmy's Face to Face. Then we had Uprajo Mutsoki, also running JMT tours. Those were like legend in Soweto. So also with him, may his soul rest in peace, because they passed. And I was fortunate to meet with them. And when I told them what I'm doing, they were excited, like, oh, a young black person is doing so brave to do this. And they actually gave me advice, on how to run this business and what's important. And also, it's going to be a long-term thing. You're not going to get clients. They even said, like, we're going to give you 10 years.
10
years. Then you'll see. And, it was very difficult because so many people said, how are you going to get tourists in East London? Because this, I said, no, okay, I'm going to work because I've got people who are supporting me. And then, because it's a business, I had to sit down and like, okay, in order for me to get more experience in this, let me start school tours. Because when you go ePhlanti, uzafika kwizikolo phaya, abantwana otishara bayasela, and abantwana kuthiwa baze kwi-tour, but bahleli ePhlanti. And then, because my mother, she was a teacher, I've got colleagues and ndifunda nabo bazitishara abanye beze principals. I talk to them, guys, look, I'm here. When you've got kids who are coming to East London, I'll organize accommodation. I'll do all the bookings for their excursion, so that bangahlali ePhlanti abantwana. Mabeze. So I arrange with the museum. West Bank, kukhona eza accommodations ecawa phaya. So I went to those people, and then had rates, then I put the package, then I'll charge guiding fee, and then I have a commission for accommodation and the entrance go museum. Then it became a big thing. Like I know, like September, I've got school after school. So maybe per day I'll host about 3 schools. And that gave me experience on how to accept booking, on how to work with accommodation and all those things. Then when I went to the tourism in Ndaba for the first time, 2000, because I started the business in 2003. Then, because I was already doing school tours. Then in 2004, then I went to the tourism in Ndaba. I met a German tour operator there. And then I told him about, the Sunday township tour that I'm doing. Then they were interested on the church part. Ne?
Okay.
Because remember, there was Men's Bar in Brahim, Tanzania. So there was a band there that plays on Sunday. So I designed my tour according to that. So in the morning, we go to the church, like spend an hour. Because church, as I said, Zayuni. There's a vibe. Yeah. So this guy said, look, which we're still friends even today. He said, no, next Sunday, I've got guests. They'll be taking a train from East London to Joburg. So meet them, take them to this tour. I took them. They went to, but we removed men's. We stopped at men's. They had a beer. Then we went to the church. And it was exciting. For the first time.
What do you think is so appealing to people that aren't from here about an environment like that? Because as Umdu was in Monti, that sounds like just basic Sundays. But what's so special about it that maybe we can't see?
Look, international tourists, they love music.
Okay.
Especially our South African music. Now, vibe. So it's exciting to them because they've never seen. But there's a music element. And you're going to bet on the drums, bet on the so that excites them. So I started working with that church, and they started sending groups. Like I'll have a group from Germany every Sundays. So we'll do the church in the morning and then go around in Tanzania, stop at men's in the afternoon and drink. They will have to make friends. And it became very popular. Up until I had students from Mercedes-Benz also, which, they have interns like for 2 years, they will be here. And those interns, they will have families that are coming here. Then, because I started hosting managers from Mercedes-Benz, they wanted to see Tanzania. And then after they said, look, we're from Germany. This is quite interesting. So give us your number. I've got a family. So while I'm at work, host them. So it happens. And I ended up attending trade shows. I went to Germany many times. Then I was approached by Fair Trade and Tourism. They were working with SIPO. SIPO, it's a Swiss company for promotions.
Okay.
So they were selecting about 13 people from South Africa. So I was representing the Eastern Cape. So we will do Switzerland, Austria, and Germany to source all the German-speaking market. Then we have 3 towns in Austria, 3 towns in Switzerland, 3 towns in Germany. So in all these towns, we were trained by TUI. TUI is one of the biggest tour operator in the world, is the biggest tour operator. So we're trained how to deal with the German market. And what we'll do, we'll have, you'll be trained how to present your product in 5 minutes.
Okay.
And all of us were sitting here, and we're going to correct each other. So you're going to stand there and present your product in front of your colleagues. Then after that, they will hit you, change this, do this, do this. And that's how I learn. You present your product on pictures.
Oh, and I was actually mentioning in the first hour, I took a trip to Cape Town recently. And the most fascinating thing to me was how beautiful the landscapes were.
Yeah.
And that's something visual.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that somebody who just would tell me drive to Cape Town, you'll have a great time, I would think, why would I want to drive? That'll be boring. But if somebody were to say, look at what I see on the way to Cape Town.
So you'll have your presentation rolling. On the other side, we are talking 5 minutes. And then after that, we had per day more than 20 agents in the house. So after the presentations, all of us, you've got your own stand. Then you'll have a queue of agents from Europe who wants to work with you. And that was one of the biggest thing ever, because you have to go to those to the trip for 3 years. Sponsored, you travel all these towns every day. You wake up, by the time you finish, and your emails are packed because they want itineraries to send to them. Because they want all the activities, especially because I think in province, we're not taking tourism very serious. Not at all.
I want to actually, get into that part of the conversation. But you mentioned earlier about how when you started off, there wasn't much on the, to do with tourism.
No.
Yeah, here in at the time East London, now go Compo City. What do you think has changed in the landscape since then? And I ask you because you not only are a very key figure in that particular sector, but you seem to be somebody that truly, started something new. So, what changes have you seen?
Yeah, a lot, my bro. For example, we used to have Tourism East London Information Center at the City Hall, where there's a library, it's a retail library. Craig was the CEO of Tourism East London. And then there were a lot of initiatives that were happening. And then when he passed, then it became, when East London, there were metros now, it became Buffalo City Municipality. Then it changed to Buffalo City Tourism. Then there was a new management. And then I've been a board member of Buffalo City Tourism. And they moved to the beachfront, which was a perfect spot because Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency and Buffalo City Tourism, they were right at the beachfront. So you could advertise. I used to go and sit there. And then we have like walk-ins. They wanted something to do. I had brochures. I've walked the whole of Island because I didn't have a car. Take a taxi, go to Gonupi, every lodge. Because I remember there was a cricket. Was it 2000? It was 2000. And by when I had won an award on from SA Breweries Kickstart. So they had this competition for young entrepreneurs because it's SAB Foundation now, where they train you on how to write a business plan. So I became number 2 in the province because of my concept. Then I had about 35,000 grant to start a business. But now the problem, I didn't have money to register a business. And in order to get all the equipment, because they didn't give you cash, you have to get all the equipment to start a business, office staff and all those things. Now, I didn't have money to register a business. And then it was World Cup, Cricket World Cup. I went to the internet cafe, designed some flyers about the township tour. I went to all the guest houses up to Gonubi. On a Friday, I got a call from these guys. They said, there's 10 of us who want to do a township tour. And now the problem, I don't have a car.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, this is how it works. We've got 2 options. I can jump into your car. It's going to work cheaper. I'm going to bring a car. It's going to be a little bit expensive. They said, no, we're driving. We've got a bus. It's a good shot. Because I had to hire a taxi, which they've disappointed me so many times. There was a time I was sitting waiting for this guy. So now we had all the municipalities opening, they had their LED offices, Amatola District Municipality, because Buffalo City was under Amatola District Municipality. So they started heritage stuff, promoting Buffalo City. Then a lot of people now, they started getting interest on tourism. And we had this, what's this, which was started by LTOs and DTOs, local tourism organizations, which were formed. So we had one of the biggest in the Amatole, which was called Tunga Tunga. It was a route which was designed by the locals, where Tunga Tunga means connecting the Amatole. And then we had this guy, Ralph, the one I've met from Germany. He was bringing groups in numbers in the Eastern Cape because of Tunga Tunga. And even all the people who started businesses like Tumis BNP and Tanzania, they were part of that route, Sangweni Lodge, Alice. And these people were active. Then we started having trainings. There were institutions that were formed to train young tourism businesses, which were under Tunga Tunga. There were guides which were trained. And then the interest, it started growing. And we had so many businesses now which were under Tunga Tunga route. But all that, when Mrs. Konikakana, may she rest in peace, when she died, so there was no one to push Tunga Tunga. And then the whole thing collapsed. And all the LTOs, they've collapsed. And DTOs. Then there were also routes, like, for example, Wild Coast Chigaleza, which was promoting all the tourism businesses along the area of Xinsa. So you can still see now when you're driving there, there's a sign inside Wild Coast Chigaleza, because it's a meander going around. That brought a lot of tourists because people came together to promote the area. Same today, like you've got all your Nkwenkwes, they became very popular. Arena Resort, they become popular because they were all pushing that route.
Something that does fascinate me a lot, is that we often don't view, even if you're looking at things more locally within South Africa, people often think of Kruger National Park, they think of maybe a Sun City, they think of all these places that are so far when they think about tourism and adventure. A lot of people don't often think about the Eastern Cape, and people from the Eastern Cape, people from outside the Eastern Cape usually don't consider it. And I'm wondering, what do you think creates that perception? You said earlier on that you feel as if, as people in this province, we don't really understand the potential we have when it comes to tourism. Why do you think that is?
Look, there's so many things that we've like Cape Town, they're monopolizing everything. When you get to Cape Town, you get some people, don't go to Eastern Cape. What can you do in the Eastern Cape? And I've met so many colleagues that are in Cape Town, are from the Eastern Cape, which they've got businesses. And I've sent them all the programs, and then they get excited. Like, we didn't know. Everyone always say, we didn't know. I met an operator from the USA, and then I was presenting, and then because Steve Biko and Mandela in the States, they're very big. So I told them, I said, please tell us about these things because we don't know. We didn't even know Mandela comes from the Eastern Cape. We know he's from Soweto.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that people abroad don't realize that these roots are actually here?
They don't. Like, for example, next week on the 18th, I've got someone from the USA. He said, I saw on your website, Steve Biko. I want to go just to see Steve Biko. I want to go to his house, because we don't talk about these things. And if we come up together and shout the voice and said, this is what you can get in the Eastern Cape. Now, people are working in different silos, not working. In Cape Town, if you go to Cape Town, you know exactly what you'll do in Cape Town. But if you're coming to East London, you're going to ask, what can I do here? What can I do with my kids?
How much of that is, due to maybe a lack of marketing on maybe social media? Because I'm just trying to think, like you're saying, I think if I just scroll my Instagram, I might see things that I can do in Cape Town, things that I can do in Joburg. But when it comes to the Eastern Cape, I almost don't see much.
Exactly. Because in the Western Cape, they've got their own LTO, which is, I just forgot the name. They put money to promote the Western Cape.
Okay.
And those guys, they travel all over the world to promote Western Cape.
Oh, so is it? So that's an investment conversation.
Yeah.
Not only just financially, but also the time.
Exactly. That's why we don't have LTOs here, because the municipalities they end up funding LTOs. those are supposed to be self-funded by the businesses.
Oh.
Because this is your own baby. The municipalities, they end up, when there's a meeting, they have to call people. We're going to have a meeting of an LTO, and people will say, we don't have money. Now we're going to organize transport. And then now you spoon feeding businesses, but you need to teach businesses to put money, to invest on this, like in the Western Cape. If you go to Soweto, the guys in Soweto, they started an LTO called Sowe 2. They go, it's still there. All the businesses of Soweto, they promote Soweto with that LTO called Sowe 2. When you look at it, Soweto, but Batibona, Sowe 2. We don't have those things here. It's only which is being revived now, Wild Coast Association, which is promoting Wild Coast, because Wild Coast, like I had some guys, because it's the sardine run now. So I had some guys from Russia, from Spain, from like all over the world. They're here. They were telling me, this is the first time I'm coming here. I've been to Cape Town, but why this place it's like this? Because you're supposed to tell us about this place. We're supposed to, when you Google, it must come up first, because we've never seen a place so beautiful like this.
I want to actually ask you that, because I think a lot of people that are not from the Eastern Cape always speak to how beautiful it is. They always say, I'm surprised by how beautiful this this part of the country is. What do you think are our biggest strengths when it comes to tourism wise? So if we were to try to elevate our industry, try to maybe have that more of that synergy, or have businesses that are actually taking the responsibility in their own hands, what are those things they should lean on more? What are our strengths as a region?
Look, Eastern Cape was supposed to be a hub of cultural tourism.
Okay.
We still have villages.
Okay. Could you quickly define what cultural tourism is?
We need to teach people about Buxhosa bethu.
Okay.
You teach people in the village. Like simple example, what we've done at Qunu, we created homestays so that people can stay there and spend the night and wake up and learn about Mandela and learn about culture. I've hosted already a lot of people at Qunu. We started 2 years back, those homestays. And we're teaching the way of life. By understand abantu bakho abantu okuthiwa ngamaXhosa. uMandela nangu umzi wakhe, nangu kokwabo, nansi family kaMandela. Ngumxhosa. This is how we grew up. And they learn about the culture. We've got some homestays up in Limpopo, which we learn about the vendor culture. So what we're doing now, we're trying to put together a package, because we've got some in Durban. So they learn about the vendor people, they learn about the Ndebele, they learn about the Mpumalanga, khona amaswati pa. Then by Durban, they learn about AmaZulu. Then by the Eastern Cape, they learn about amaXhosa. Then we can go to Cape Town. Paya, you're going to learn about culture yabelungu, culture yamaKhaladi pa, When you go to Bokap, then you learn about those people. So that's culture. That's cultural tourism. Eastern Cape, it's diverse. You've got a Mampondo, you've got a Mampondo.
And also, I'm thinking back to what you said earlier as well about how, people from other parts of the world will like what they're not used to.
Yeah.
So there's no place where people can hear and can really experience isiXhosa in the cultural sense better than the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So I suppose it does make sense.
Like simple example, I had a film crew. They saw something on my website about cultural experiences in Eastern Cape, because I've designed, you go to different villages. So their interest was on food.
Okay.
So I took them at the airport, at the whole film crew. We stopped. Normally, the Zuma Mumdende, it's called Amaku Institute. So Paya, they give you a lecture about the family structure, how these Rondavels, the difference, like Inkundla, Nankumzi, Nansinkundla, Nabuhlanti, those important things in the family. And then there's food also they cook. They've got a gadi enamayeza esintu. Like, so they're being taught about those things. So by the time you go and sleep in the village, you know the do's and don'ts, because you've been taught about culture amaXhosa. Then they will do that. Then we went down to Engeleni. There's a cultural, we started a coffee bay. So we have a village dinner. So these women in the afternoon, they cook for you. You go and eat with them what they are eating. They dance, they have mkomboti. So they arrive when they are cooking, imifino, all those things. And I'm telling you, the way they were so fascinated, like we didn't know the Xhosa culture, it's so rich. When we meet amaXhosa koJoburg, we're like, abantu, they're coming from the Bundus. And to be honest, most of the tourists, they said, people of the Eastern Cape are very warm. We even the other day went to Engeleni. I had students from the States. Then we saw there was a wedding in the village, like the authentic traditional wedding.
Xhosa wedding.
It was the daughter of the chief. We arranged with the family. The school was going to stay there for about 4 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they will walk by themselves to that family to have a wedding. And with students, it's nice because once they get the experience, it's something, because they were given a ship. Hey, slaughter, here's a ship. It's your own. Because I said, okay, let's try and organize a bottle of a brand. At least we'll give them something. Slaughter is sheep. It's your own meat.
And that's a cultural experience, because I'm pretty sure for them, the idea of just slaughtering an animal was so foreign to them.
I still have pictures. And they were told that go and sit there, men there, and they didn't understand why the separation. And the elder man will explain to them why we do these things. Why, and they had the chance to sit with the bride and the groom. Later, because they were at university, they came back. Others are working, others they've got their wives and husbands. They wanted to bring their family to learn that. So that's the biggest advantage of also hosting universities. If they had a good time, they're going to bring their families. So they still do. Even the professors, I hosted professors of the university with their families.
That's so interesting, because I think that also speaks to, the role that, travel and, adventure plays in almost family traditions for some people. Because I also know that I have a certain family friend of mine whose family always goes to Hole in the Wall.
Yeah.
They're from KZN.
Yeah.
From Edepen, and they had never really had much exposure to the Eastern Cape.
Exactly.
But his father told me that once when he was young, him and his wife went there, and they told themselves every year, they have to be there with the kids. They have to experience this and absorb the culture.
Exactly.
And which brings me to something else that I also want to ask you. What are maybe some hidden gems and destinations and activities for people to do here in Gqombha City, but as well the broader Eastern Cape? Because when I went to Hole in the Wall, my hometown is Mqanduli. My family's from there. Mqanduli is right like I'd never heard of Hole in the Wall in my life.
Yeah.
It took a family friend whose family's from another part of the country to say, let's go here. And I was like, wow, I didn't know we have this. So maybe could you speak about some of those hidden gems that maybe even us people of this region don't know about?
I'll start, I was invited in Butterworth. They had the tourism symposium, and so to talk about the opportunities in the tourism industry. So we had all these professors, and they're presenting, research and all those things, which for me, it doesn't make sense. You're going to do research, then after that, what? So I told them, and one of the ladies was presenting, I think 2 or 3 of them, they were presenting about Bawa Falls. And I'm like, guys, you're missing the point. Butterworth, it's so rich. We had Teoshoga there. I was in Scotland. I had the operator asking me about Teoshoga. If I know. I said, I know even his village. And I said, like, why don't you, as people of Butterworth, design missionary tours? Go and promote it in Scotland. Once they know, they hear the name of Teoshoga, they will come down because his family is there, his grave is there. I know there's a hall which was built about him. And again, in the whole world, we've got about 21 waterfalls that goes to the sea. Eastern Cape, we've got 2. Next year, January, because these pictures are in my website. I had an agent from the States said, look, we've got about 13 people want to come and see Waterfall Bluff. It's one of the biggest waterfall that goes to the sea outside of Sikisiki. They are coming from the States just for that waterfall. And I said, right around here, we've got more than 6 waterfalls that you'll see in those 2 days we'll be here. already January, they are coming. I'm picking them in Tata. We're going to Sikisiki. They just want to see that waterfall. But Dutwa, we've got a place called Collywobbles. This is the biggest colony of Cape vulture in Southern Africa. It's here in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, I have family. I've never known of this.
No, when you look on your social media, look at mountain passes in South Africa. You're gonna see these people. They come to Collywobbles to view vultures. It's one of the beautiful areas in the Eastern Cape, not far. Yeah, in Butterworth. You know, then you've got your hole in the wall. You've got Makwa waterfalls. You've got Tsitsa waterfalls. They are like Victoria Falls. But people, they don't know. Tsitsa River has got 2 waterfalls up in Maclear. Then again, in the Eastern Cape, when you go down outside PE, we've got a lot of game reserves. Now, and then again, besides game reserves, in the whole world, we've got 2 migrations that are happening. They're both in Africa. If you go to Serengeti, there's animal migration, those wildebeest that's moving, and zebras from another side to the other side. Eastern Cape, Tetanawe Nguku. On the sea, we've got Sardine Run.
I think there's a lot of things going on up I actually didn't know about.
We've got Sardine Run. It's happening every year. We're hosting guests already. We're working with diving companies. Next week, Friday, I've got about 9 people from Russia going to Dumbi. Up until my bookings for the Sardine Run, they are ending on the 2nd week of August.
Oh, August is far.
Yeah. And that's the biggest advantage here to Eastern Cape. Yeah, but no, if you go to Cape Town, in terms of tourism, it's quiet. Eastern Cape, it's booming because of the Sardine Run. And the weather, again, it allows us a lot. You might have noticed a lot of people now, even black people, they are starting hiking groups. Everyone is into hiking. They are doing hiking. It's good season for hiking now. Because it's not that cold. The rivers are low, and also it's still warm. And one of the biggest hiking trail, it's the Amatola hiking trail up in Hogsback. You've been to Hogsback.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful place.
What an experience.
When you talk about Hogsback to tourists, they will ask, what can we do? If you know, then you present what Hogsback can offer. And then everyone get excited. Like I'm hosting a lot of hiking groups, like every week. They are doing the Wild Coast Meander. It's Wave Crest, Trinaries, Morgan Bay, Haga Haga, up to Tsinsa. So I will tell them, look, have you done this hike? I said, no. And then I showed the pictures. I said, no, next year I'm coming to the Eastern Cape. I'm going to do this hike. There's one called Pondo Trail. It's one of the best, beautiful, beautiful trail in the Eastern Cape.
This is so fascinating to me. I really can't help but also wonder when it comes to understanding, culture, because tourism includes so much of culture and history, as well. And I can't help but wonder that maybe if we were a society that got this tourism thing right, particularly here in the Eastern Cape, we would see much more, maybe better understanding between us and maybe our neighbors, and maybe, countries more further away. So what sort of a role do you think tourism plays when it comes to the integration of the different sorts of people and cultures and languages that all exist in this world?
Look, tourism unites people, and it creates jobs for the communities, and it helps to learn about different cultures. We've got these 9 wars that happened in this area. If you go to Durban, everyone from the UK want to go to see Battle of East Andron. But here, we've got more than that. They started here, they ended up in KZN. But we never took advantage of those heritage sites to promote them. Almost we've got like your Fort Armstrong, Fort Glamorgan, Fort Hare, a lot of forts, Fort Pato,
Fort Jackson.
And if you package those things, and then go and promote in the UK. Though the families of those people, they want to come and see where our grandparents have been buried. Yeah, opposite a cricket sports ground. There are a lot of graves there. We've got the German history in this town. In the Eastern Cape.
German history.
Yeah.
Explain that, please. I'm learning so many things during this interview.
Go in front of the aquarium at beachfront. Yes, bonus statues pa. It's in Nabanda Batatu.
Yeah, the monument there.
The monument.
Yeah.
That's a German settler memorial.
Really? I used to live in the neighborhood. I never asked. I never thought to wonder, why is this here?
That's the German settler memorial. You know, because when we had these wars between the British and the Xhosas, Sir George Grey sent Germans this area. Those were called the German British Legends. They were fighting on the Crimean War in London. But the war was ended. They said, okay, send them to the Eastern Cape. They arrived here in 1857, young soldiers. And the idea was to form a buffer zone between the Xhosas and the British. If you look at the German villages, Hamburg, Potsdam, Berlin, Frankfurt, Hanover, Braunschweig, up to Stutterheim, they form a line. They are between East London and Port Elizabeth.
I actually want to ask you about that. How much of a role do you think history, or rather, could you explain the relationship between history and tourism? Because I actually never thought of it this way. Is that more than just being able to read on something? Nothing beats being there for the experience. And I think to myself, growing up in Durban, they used to take us to KwaZulu. And when you'd be there, not only would you be seeing the culture, but they were able to teach you the culture. And it's easy for me to understand something when I'm seeing, where the particular event happened. So could you explain the relationship between history and tourism?
No, they I would say they interact to each other. That's why we have tourist guides. Because when you get to the tourist attraction, the tourist guide will narrate the story of that. That's history. And that's an attraction. I learned something. When you walk along the coast, we've got a thing called the Maiden. Uzabona seashells. They form like something like a stone, which shows there were people who were living along the coast. Hence, at Nahoon, it's going to be a heritage site now. There were some of the oldest human fossils which were discovered at Nahoon.
Nahoon?
Yeah, go to the museum. They're there.
Nahoon.
1969.
Nahoon is like 5 minutes away.
The site is there. The site is there. It's fenced. There's a boat. When you walk at the boardwalk, you're going to see at the end. And then you go to the museum. You're going to see the originals of those. There's an archaeological museum at Nahoon. You're going to see the Maiden. It's there. It's displayed. You're going to see the replica of those human fossils. There at Nahoon. Not far.
This has been quite the conversation. I'm so taken aback. I feel as if I'm almost ashamed to not know so much about my home province. And I really hope that this conversation inspires me and everybody at home to engage more and to actually go and seek adventure, not just in faraway places, but within our own backyard.
Do you know the coelacanth, the fish?
No.
That fish was believed it was extinct for 500 million years. It was found here at Cholom. Yeah, now some museum go. If you want to see, we get people from all over the world. They want to see the fish. They want to go to the museum to see the fish because it's original. It's there.
Wow. Thank you so much, Budveli. Is there anything maybe you want to say in closing? We're a bit pressed for time. I think you and I could speak the whole day about this. I'm so fascinating. But anything you would want to say, especially I think in relation to the cracks of the matter of tourism and leisure, particularly here in the Eastern Cape. For anybody who's young within the industry, any local business, what would you say to them?
Look, I told you, it looks like Eastern Cape tourism not taken serious. We're talking about Hole in the Wall. If Hole in the Wall was in Cape Town, you're going to pay to get in there.
Yeah, everybody would know about it. Yeah, everybody will
know about it. And there were going to be, we're supposed to have coffee shops around Hole in the Wall. curio shops, and then you pay to get in there. That will create jobs for people. But we don't do those things. And young people, I was telling them at Butterworth, you study tourism, and between Durban and Port Elizabeth or Cape Town, all the coaches of tourists, they drive on the N2. But once you pass Port Alfred going to Port Elizabeth, you're going to see farm stalls. You've seen farm stalls, Nanaka farm stall.
Yes, I was actually saying I'm away to Cape Town. We passed there, and I thought, wow.
You go. There's even another place called Ronnie's Sex Shop.
Hey, what's happening there?
It's a pub, a coffee shop.
Okay,
but it attracts people because it's called Ronnie's Sex Shop. When you get inside the pub, all the underwears and bras, t-shirts, caps, they leave them there. So it became a big tourist attraction. Everyone goes there. But you drive from Kokstad, nothing. A lot of tourists, they don't even know the House of Mandela.
Really?
No. I told you, they said Mandela is coming from Soweto because the house in Soweto is being promoted big time.
So, I mean, is it as simple as that? Because we don't promote it enough.
There's not even
There's
signage.
Millions of people that think Mandela is probably from Soweto.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I hear from when I told them every time I drive, here's a House of Mandela. No, you're lying. Mandela's house is in Soweto. I said, there's a grave there of Mandela. We're supposed to have a farm stall, coffee shops at Qunu on that street. So people can stop and have a coffee shop, get souvenirs of Qunu. Supposed to have like big signage when you get to Qunu, like welcome to the home of Nelson Mandela. Something like that, so that people know this is where Mandela comes from. And then it will change, the way people think of tourism. We'll have a lot of people. It will benefit people of Qunu who sometimes don't even have water. So, I always say people must ask. There's one thing that pisses me off. You'll say, Ati yeah, usenza lento yakho. Like, how can you call my business into yakho? Ati, ndiyayifuna kungena kule nto yenu. Why don't you ask? And then we'll advise you. There's so many opportunities on the tourism, which thina singabantu abamnyama, hayi abelungu abasiphathele nemali le. That mentality, if we can get rid of that mentality.
They'll be spoon-fed instead of capitalizing.
Exactly. And if wenza something, then tourists will come, bathenge something kuwe. Like what is happening in Vilakazi, Soweto. Everyone in Soweto, if it's a Vilakazi, he wants to do something. And sell it to tourists. And now what's happening? Hotels take those guys to go and entertain guests at the hotel. Simple things. In tourism, you don't have to go to school and study, have a diploma. Even if you don't have a matric, you can do something.
There's a lot for us to improve on as a region.
A lot.
Thank you so much for being with us, today, Boet. And I'm hoping this is going to be the first of many different relationships and conversations we're able to have in relation to the importance of tourism.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And that, of course, was Ubudvelile and Lumbini, the managing director of Imondi Tours. And we're discussing, tourism and leisure here in the Eastern Cape. What a passionate man. What a passionate way in which he spoke about it. And as a native here, I feel ashamed, but I also feel inspired to also go out there and seek more adventures, seek more activities, do more very interesting things.
The Voice Lounge, where voices come to life.